What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show on today, where it is the new year, it's 2025, and it's like a new era in HBCU football. And I am so ready for it. And the football season is over, but we got to talk about all the things going on. I have Arielle Kilgore in the building. Arielle, how you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Randall. It's been a minute.
It indeed has. It indeed has. So how's everything been going with you? How's your New Year been? How was your Christmas and everything like that?
Speaking of Christmas, happy belated as well.
Thank you.
So it's celebrating a really big year for you. Christmas was great. New Year's has been solid. I honestly can't complain. Just happy to be here. That's all. That's all I got. What about you?
I can't complain because all the stuff that's happened in HBCU sports, we back in business, okay? We back in business. Like Deion Sanders left. He had Colorado, got Heisman Trophy winners, all different stuff like that. But we're over here in the HBCU space, and we're once again making it happen. The shop is back open, okay? Because we got Michael Vick, and we got DeSean Jackson that are now HBCU coaches. Michael Vick at Norfolk State, and you have DeSean Jackson at Delaware State, and of course still Eddie George at Tennessee State. We talked about him a lot last year, so it's a lot of great stuff happening. I'm super excited. So let's go on and get into it, because listen, the Michael Vick situation, well, Michael Vick becoming the head coach in Norfolk State was like one of the worst kept secrets in the world. Like, it honestly was. Like, everybody that had an HBCU degree heard and was on Twitter a little bit, they heard about Michael Vick and him possibly becoming Norfolk State's head coach. It became sort of like, hey, it would be cool if he came in like Deion, and then all of a sudden he was being announced, and then it was being broken. And then you had HBCU folks, like shout out to Scotty from Allscript, like they're scooping Adam Schuffner and Pete Thamel. It was folks that was getting to it before they did. The HBCU community really won that sort of sourcing war with the big boys. So I thought it was really cool. I'm super excited. So we didn't get an opportunity to talk about it because they did the press conference, Arielle, on the 23rd of December. So it was a couple days before Christmas. So I want to get your take on it. So what do you think about Michael Vick officially being named the head coach of Norfolk State University?
I'm officially excited, but we also can't forget there are also two NFL professionals, retired professionals, that also went to D2. We got to talk about Shaw. We got to talk about some other teams. So this is just a really big year in general of seeing finally the HBCU get the spotlight or get it back after having Deion left from Jackson State to go to Colorado. So this is amazing to me. I personally think out of all the head coaching hires outside of Deion Sanders, this to me has to be the best one that I have seen. You're bringing him back into where he's from. He's necessarily from Virginia. His wife is up there. His wife is actually went to a rival college. So this is going to be fun. Her at the games and wearing those Spartan colors. I think that's going to be amazing. But also the number one reason that I think this is the best pick is because he is a former quarterback. And as we've seen with Deion Sanders, I think quarterback coaches to me are the most level-headed coaches that you can never have. Because as a quarterback, you see the whole field. You know what kind of weapons you need. You know what the defense is going to play. You have to be the most intelligent person on the field. And we've seen that through Michael Vick's career. We've seen it at Virginia Tech and then when he went into the NFL. So seeing him back in this position, able to give back, adding on to his tenure as probably one of the best football players that we have ever seen. This makes me excited. And even his pull now of one of the QBs that he just brought in, I'm just like, okay, Michael Vick knows what he's doing. Of course, who he brought in has to be, especially a dual threat, just like how he is. You have to be able to run. You have to be able to pass the ball. You have to be able to make excessive decisions. But also, he's one of the first NFL retired professionals to come back with coaching experience. He was with Andy Reid in 2017 as one of their coordinators and also interned under two other professional NFL teams. So he, out of all of them, has the most experience about what it means to be a coach, how to coach players, having that experience and what he needs to bring onto the field. Now, I still stand by my statement. The last time that we talked, when we were ending the season, going to the Celebration Bowl, I don't see this as a miracle season like Deion Sanders had, just because his recruitment was just a little bit more. But I know people want to play for Michael Vick. But I do see him going above average. I just think Norfolk State has a really good chance to prove and show up for themselves that we may be competition in the next 2 or 3 years.
I have a very interesting viewpoint on Michael Vick that if we talked on Christmas week, I would have thought one thing. But now I think something totally different. Because I agree with you. Because at first I was like, nah, Michael Vick gonna come in there as him and Chennis Berry. Okay, he's gonna be them. But then I was like, I don't know. I think, because I'll say this, okay? So my first thought when Michael Vick came in, of course, the business side of me was like, yes. Of course, I'm the head of HBCU content for Clutch Points. We're writing these articles. We want to get these article numbers up. And have they been up? Have they been up? Okay? Because it's only the start of January, and boy, we in business. We are in business. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun these next 2 years, because he's gonna be gone by about 2026. By about midterm, but the midterms, he's gonna be gone. Let's be for real. But still, we in business. So I was excited from that standpoint, but also from a football standpoint, I knew that there were going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are going to want to play for Michael Vick. And he has a different specificity from Deion Sanders because of the fact that he's that guy that people still know. He was in the league. He retired in 2017. His last team was the Steelers. People still remember him playing for the Eagles, of course, with the Falcons, of course, the drama around the dogfighting people know about. But there's an element of him being relevant within football culture that I thought really would lend itself to him being a coach. Almost the same thing as Deion. He wasn't as big as Deion, because Deion's peer is Michael Jordan. That's his peer. You know what I mean? But Michael Vick's peer is Allen Iverson, but that matters a lot because a lot of folks remember, hey, I remember Michael Vick. Then we have to factor in that the video games is how a lot of people interface with sports history. Because there's some folks that don't know who Michael Vick is, or that never watched him play, but they played him in Madden on Ultimate Team, because they took out the classic teams. On Ultimate Team, I play Michael Vick all the time. You know what I mean? So there's that specificity of it where people know him. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of folks that are going to want to play for him that said, I played with you in Madden. So I'm like, he's going to recruit an amazing team. He's going to be very similar to Deion, but the MEAC is just a different beast than the SWAC, because I think that Jackson State and Deion Sanders were right to take over the SWAC because it was a little bit weaker when he was coming in back in 2020. And then, of course, the spring season, then that fall 2021 season, they went to the Celebration Bowl. Now, I'm looking at it a little bit differently. I like his coaching staff. I like the quarterback he got. But I want to see a little bit more. And I want to see if he is going to take the team that Dawson Odoms sort of gave him, sort of re-recruit them, bring them in, add some parts, get a new quarterback, maybe get a new running back, get some new defensive guys that he's gotten. But I want to see what he does. Is he completely dismantling this team and making it his team? Or is he going to, for this first year, take Dawson Odom's guys and then try to make things happen? And also, his sort of star power is he's still Michael Vick. And we're going to talk about this in a second, but DeSean Jackson is in the MEAC. And I'm not going to lie to you, Arielle. I'll go on and tell you right now. DeSean Jackson has impressed me way more than Michael Vick has. I'm sorry. He's impressed me way more. I see how you look, and people are gonna be mad at me. They're getting mad at me now. I've turned. They're getting mad at me now. But he's impressed me way more than Michael Vick has, and I'm just nervous for him. I'm wearing a Norfolk State hoodie, but I'm just a little bit nervous because I'm like, you not like, oh, it's Michael Vick. He's in. No, imagine Deion Sanders and Ray Lewis in the SWAC. Deion probably gonna still win as far as getting recruits. But that's another polarizing person of the stature of Deion, because Ray Lewis is a step below, but that's still Ray Lewis. DeSean Jackson was your teammate. Then also he's on the offensive side of the ball. So you were a quarterback. He was a wide receiver. I don't know. So that's all I'm saying. I don't know. Now I'm ecstatic, but I don't know now.
I don't necessarily think you can compare Ray Lewis to Deion Sanders. Two different sides of the ball, two different parts of the field. To me, if we're we're talking about like, because everybody there's a with football is different. I'm not trying to say basketball or any other sport is not comparable. But with football, you have different positions, just like how you had different positions in basketball, whatever. But essentially, in basketball and some of the other sports, golf, softball, volleyball, they all essentially do the same thing. So of course you can have Michael Jordan as your GOAT of all time. And then maybe you can throw in LeBron. People can have a conversation about that. Then you can have a conversation about Kobe. But they all essentially played the same game. Yes, they maybe played at different positions, but it's the same game. You can replace somebody in the throne up there. But if we're talking about QBs, wide receivers, DBs, safeties, there just can't be one person that is great overall. Like there can be a comparison between Peyton Manning, and we can do that against Tom Brady, but that's because they're both quarterbacks. I can't do Ray Lewis against Tom Brady because they play different positions and they're both equally great. And goes into my argument of why I think Michael Vick was the better pick of DeSean Jackson. Yes, DeSean Jackson is more relevant. He's a little bit earlier in his retirement than Michael Vick is. But I think I love a quiet coach. When Chennis Berry stepped onto the scene, he wasn't about all this hoopla. He wasn't throwing out his recruits. We may heard about his quarterback recruit, but we weren't really seeing anything. And then also when he pulled his D2 commits, a lot of people weren't saying anything either. And to your point, people think just D2 doesn't have any talent. But obviously they took all that talent and went to the Celebration Bowl regardless of their loss. So I kind of like the way Michael Vick is moving. I don't want him to dismantle anybody. He doesn't have to start over like Chennis Berry did last year. I mean, the team went 4-8, 2-3 at conference. Last seasons were mostly blowouts or they won by 1 or 2 points. Not really great. We want to see that deficit margin or that winning margin be more prominent. But I think where he's at right now as a first-time coach and the experience, we have to remember the experience that he has. This, to me, is the most professional, well-rounded NFL retiree that we have got. Deion Sanders has coached high school, and then he went straight into college and has no internship under any NFL football program. He just played. So we're taking Michael Vick, who's, to me, taking this seriously. I'm not finna go to a team that I don't know how to direct or I don't know how to coach. And he right now just stands a little bit above the pedestal than what anybody who has recognition or who has some type of celebrity superstardom that can bring in, then to me, a DeSean Jackson, or to me, what we're talking about, any other new coaches in the MEAC besides Sam Washington. We're going to hold that thought. But, and all those other coaches that are coming back. But besides that, I personally think that he goes beyond DeSean Jackson. And he, to me, might have a more successful season just because he is a wide receiver and maybe he will diversify his weapons more than he is focused about the person who's going to lead their team.
Mm. I want to move to DeSean Jackson because I want to tell you why I think that he's impressed me more. So I want to share, because I didn't get a chance to tell you this off camera. I want to share this with you just behind the scenes for everybody. So, I'm trying to leverage up HBCU Pulse Arielle, trying to make things happen. Of course, And one of the big things I want to get into is like being there for those moments. Like, we aggregate it, like we'll get it from someone else and we'll tag them. But I want to build a video library. Like I want us to be there for these different moments that are big in HBCU culture. So I actually, work with a videographer to get the DeSean Jackson press conference. So shout out to Chelsea, Genie Production. She is amazing. Cannot wait to do more work with her. She is awesome, I'm telling you. So we actually did it. It was successful. It's on HBC Pulse YouTube now. I don't have a clip right now, but go watch it. It was amazing. And we did a lot of great work. DeSean Jackson, his press conference, I watched it from top to bottom because of the nature of having to work it, make sure everything's good on our end as far as streaming it. And I got a chance to listen to it. And just the energy, it really stuck out to me. And Michael Vick is a quiet person, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's not as flashy as Deion or as like, hey, bold out there like DeSean, and that I'm fine with that. But it was the way that DeSean Jackson carried himself in that press conference. It was the way he said what he wanted to do and what his goal was that really made me believe that, hey, I think DeSean Jackson might have a better first season than Michael Vick. Even though I think Delaware State is further away from Norfolk State because Norfolk had some levels of success, for example, against FAMU. They had some levels of success. Delaware State, they played Hawaii really well, but they've only won 2 games in 2 seasons. You know what I'm saying? So that's more of like, hey, we got to get things together versus Norfolk State is just simply some coaching decisions, different things like that, right? But DeSean Jackson's vision of, hey, like, I don't need an IL. I'm DeSean Jackson. You want to get in the NFL? Come over here. Michael Vick has the same pitch. But is Michael Vick going to say it like that? Because like DeSean Jackson being a wide receiver and a lot of these folks, like quarterbacks is always going to be cool in style. Okay, but like the wide receivers, folks want to get out there, they want to go and catch the ball, like do Tyreek Hill stuff, do all this different stuff like that, like do Justin Jefferson stuff. Like they want to do stuff like that. And I think that him being the wide receiver he was, I think that he's going to be able to get a room of wide receivers that are speedy, that can catch the ball, that can make plays. He's going to need a quarterback to throw it to him, but I think the receivers are going to be really great. Then on top of that, we have to look at the fact that DeSean Jackson is coming in, tapping into a whole entirely different market because he's coming from Cali. He was the offensive coordinator at Woodrow Wilson High School in California, and he has that level of experience, not a lot of it, not a lot of experience at all, but he has that experience. He has the head coach of Woodrow Wilson High School that was at the press conference, Travis Clark, and it was touching because he gave DeSean the opportunity, and DeSean was like, you know what? You gave me the opportunity to coach for you last year. Come with me to Delaware State. And it honestly was beautiful, for real, because it's like, that's what I want to do. You know, I want to do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you have Travis Clark that's coming in, and that's his right-hand guy, and he's an experienced coach. Like, DeSean Jackson and what he's saying, and then the fact you already have gotten Antonio Gates Senior's son from Michigan State. And then there's all these West Coast guys you're getting, and you're tapping into that pipeline that HBCUs don't tap into. There are folks in California that don't know what an HBCU is, which is insane to me. So, like, you get those guys, it's like, oh, DeSean Jackson's at Delaware State. I'm going to go up to Delaware before I go to, like, this Power 5 school. I think it's different. Michael Vick has Virginia, but you got Hampton in Virginia. You got Virginia State in Virginia. You got Virginia Union. Shout out to Jada Byers in Virginia. What HBCU you got in California? Okay. I think that DeSean Jackson might have some, honestly. Then he's also rebuilding that team too. So I'm just saying.
I see your points, and they're all great points. But let me try to point out some of the cons in your points. You know, I love playing a little devil's advocate. Of course, we have seen, to me, really great players that have come from the West Coast. And the West Coast holds a lot of talent. However, we know those nitty-gritty boys are all from the South, all from the East Coast. Now, I do love the idea of involving and evolving HBCUs all across America, because that is true. A lot of West Coast schools, maybe Midwest, do not know what HBCUs are. And trying to pull them out of those cultural shocks and into our world is amazing. However, I don't know if he has enough star power as DeSean had to bring those new equipments, to bring those new coaches, to bring those new trainers, to stand on that standard that if I'm bringing these kids out of the element and out of these D1 PWI schools, I have to make Delaware State's program as elite and give them the chance as they could be. So if I'm DeSean Jackson, if I'm pulling these kids, I have to come with better exercises, with better training, with a better program, because I have to keep them. Maybe they can stay for a year, but it's all about longevity. It's all about making sure you have the players to keep that up. And what TC Taylor has that was somewhat left from Deion Sanders contributes to his success. I'm not saying that he's not a bad coach. I'm not saying he couldn't have done it himself, but some of that locker room, some of those sponsors, some of those advertisements were instilled and left by Deion Sanders. As you said, DeSean Jackson is creating a whole new program, especially from a losing team from the past 2 seasons, only winning 1 game last year. And for some odd reason, that one was against Sacred Heart, which was amazing. and you did not even stand in conference. Now, being in the MEAC, I mean, that's a little bit easier. There's only about 6 or 7 schools, and all of them are still rebuilding. There are only 2 competitions to me, is Central and South Carolina State. So it's not much that you have to really work with. But if you're deciding, it's great that you're pulling in coaches, it's great that you're pulling in players, but how are you going to keep them? How are you going to build this process into a winning team, into a winning school? And not say, I don't think just because these 2 specific quarterbacks have the kind of celebrity that they have, I don't think it's a 2 season and done situation. I don't think HBCUs technically financially are willing to lose people that have notoriety, and they'll give them a little bit more time to build that program. But that scares me. I like that he's reaching out and that he's trying to get kids and trying to show them that, hey, there's some power in HBCUs, but you have to have the stability to be there. But also, to your point, he's about to pull a lot of offensive weapons, which is great. You might have a great ground game. You might have a great air game. We're about to have wideouts coming out of the blue. But if you only build your offense around those players and you don't pick your quarterback correctly, you don't pick the leader of your team correctly, you don't search or try to prioritize players that are really going to make your season, his team can fail. And we've kind of seen that with a lot of wide receivers, or we've seen that with a lot of corners or safeties or other people that tried to transition out of that and go into coaching. Your focus shouldn't be heavily on your position, even though you should look for them, is who's going to make and lead your team. Those are the only 2 things that scare me about DeSean Jackson. I think he's committed. I think he's dedicated. And I love that he follows the footsteps and the trend of what's going on in celebrity coaches coming to HBCUs and not going to these other divisions like the SEC or the ACC. But his situation is a little bit more picky. He just has that the MEAC is a little bit narrow on his side, that maybe he could see some kind of success wherever that is, even if that's only winning 3 games.
I think that those are great points. And what I'll say really quickly, and this segues into our next topic, but what I will say is this: the best thing for both Michael Vick and also DeSean Jackson is that the HBCUs that they're going into, of course, we know that there's a resource disparity when it comes to HBCUs, that sometimes you wonder if it's going to get better because we see politically what happens both at the state and federal level. But Delaware State, they revitalized their athletic facilities. They announced it back in September. Like, it's looking really good. Like, they're revitalizing that stadium, that they're getting new training facilities. And probably by the time football starts for DeSean Jackson, maybe even by the summer, like, it might be ready now, but like that'll be all together. So I think that it's different from Jackson State. And then same thing with Norfolk State and Jackson. I'm not dissing Jackson State. I know them folks, they want to get us. I love Jackson State. Okay. I love Jackson State. And I was right about TC Taylor. So don't play with me. I was because I was right about TC Taylor. So he don't know football. I guess you don't know football because y'all love TC Taylor. I was right about TC Taylor. So I'm not dissing Jackson State. Okay. But what I'm saying is that whole entire headline of, well, Deion Sanders is donating half his salary to get this new locker room. DeSean Jackson is not going to have to do that. And Michael Vick is not going to do that because you have William Dick Price Stadium that seats 30,000 people. 30,000. And it was constructed in 1997 at a cost of $12.2 million. And it's nice. I've never been, but it is nice. When you look at it, even when you watch the games on ESPN Plus or the occasional it might be on ESPNU or what have you, it looks great. So like this is not like moribund, like the lockers are old or what have you. Like these facilities are going to be amazing. So I think that Michael Vick and DeSean Jackson, what they're going to have, they're going to be able to sit back and coach. I think that they're going to be able to sit back and coach, and everything else is additive. But here's what I will say, transitioning to our next topic about the trend of hiring former NFL players. My problem with hiring the former NFL players, yes, my problem is that I don't like the way they talk about HBCUs. Not Michael Vick. a little bit DeSean Jackson. Also, I don't like the way people regard HBCUs. And it's not Michael Vick, DeSean Jackson, Deion Sanders. This is not their fault because it's a symptom of a wider perception problem. But I get tired of a lot of folks that are not ingrained in HBCU life. This is not targeted at DeSean Jackson or Michael Vick, but looking at HBCUs as if it is a charity project. Because yes, HBCUs need resources. HBCUs need support. And yes, there are a bunch of issues that HBCUs need to tackle. And I've been on record saying, hey, there's things we need to do. There's things we can get better at. I've been on record. I'm not like, oh, HBCUs can do no wrong. I'm not that guy. But I listened to DeSean Jackson's Breakfast Club interview, and I already got a beef with Charlemagne and the Breakfast Club for how they handled the election. And I used to love the Breakfast Club. But just listening to how they were regarding Delaware State made my skin crawl. Like, I didn't know Delaware State had a football team. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Not DeSean Jackson, Charlemagne the God. Lauren LaRosa works with y'all. Where did she go? She went to Delaware State. And when Will Packer was up there, y'all was talking about how Hampton left the MEAC. Come on, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we talk about attention. Oh, DeSean Jackson's going to bring attention. Michael Vick's going to bring attention. At what cost? If they are pushing this not them, but the perception is being pushed. These HBCUs are so needy. Oh, we're an HBCU. We need this and that. When y'all are going to HBCUs where Dr. Tony Allen was tapped in with the Biden administration, you have Lisa Blunt Rochester, who is going to the Senate, one or two Black women in the Senate, that at the press conference that said Lisa Blunt Rochester called DeSean Jackson and talked to him. They said it in the press conference. Go to HBCU Pulse. So this is different. This is totally different. Norfolk State Michael Vick is a hero. He is a hero in Virginia. So, and the community is going to rally around Norfolk State. And Norfolk State, I can assure you, do we see those basketball teams? Oh my gosh, the women's basketball team is tough, okay? Like those problems that some other institutions have had, that's not going to be the problems that Delaware State and Norfolk State has to deal with. And that is my problem with the NFL player experience. Because a lot of them coming out, these HBCUs, they're just needy. It's the Ronald McDonald House. Like, no, it's not. Yes, it's a nonprofit. Yes, donate. But at the same time, it's not just a charity project that, oh, these HBCUs are so moribund. Because Norfolk and Delaware State aren't. Because Delaware State is one of the top 10 HBCUs on U.S. News and World Report. Norfolk State, look at the basketball teams. Look at the women's basketball team, especially, but the men too. But the women's basketball team, they beat 2 SEC schools. And I'm really bullish on them making it to the second round of March Madness this year because their Diamond Johnson's really good. And they got some really great players. So that's my problem when it comes to NFL guys, is I want them to come and it's good for business. It's good for us. But the perception problem that comes with them, it's like, no, HBCUs are not as morbid as you think. Yes, we have issues. Yes, we're underfunded, but we're not as bad as you think. But yeah.
Because now I feel like they're going to attack me in the comments instead of you. And I have yet to been attacked.
They love you, Arielle. They love that. They're like, this young lady has a future. I have no future, Arielle. I have none.
Everybody, listen, Randall really does sometimes carry me, and I be here for moral support. I be here so I don't get fined. You feel me? You know, but so pros and cons. Mostly pros, mostly cons as to HBCU alumni, including me, myself, and alumna. I think in the whole scheme of things, HBCUs have gotten better, but due to the choice of people that have graduated HBCUs like us, and then we can include some notable alumni like Stephen A. Smith and then Terrence J., we don't advocate or speak enough about where we come from in the first place. I can even admit to that. We think that once we graduated and we've made it big, and what has happened previously, HBCUs honestly didn't become popular until maybe around that COVID time, maybe a little bit before that, around like 2018, 2019. that's when it was just like, oh, it's really great to be HBCU, and social media has helped that a lot, especially TikTok. Seeing what homecomings are like, seeing what players are like, an everyday vlog life of what it is at HBCU. And most of them have been renovated, most of them are doing well, but most of them are not talked about unless you are Morehouse or Spelman or Delaware State or Xavier or FAMU. And most of them only get spotlight from certain people and certain professionals that are in the media that are just like, these schools are only worthy. So as as someone that's graduated, sometimes I don't even speak highly of where I come from to other people, especially to other African Americans or Black people, however you prefer, that have come to me and be like, what was your HBCU experience like? What do you think about HBCUs? How do you think that they're going, whether it's politically, financially, sports, whatever it is? So if we are stuck in a backstory narrative that HBCUs are mostly in the ghetto, or that they provide a lot of connections, but not as much connections as other people that go to PWIs or private schools or any other schools that they decide to go to, technically I think it's on us to change that narrative. Now in your respect, yes, I don't believe as a coach, as DeSean Jackson, you should be talking bad or stating some realistic facts about the school that you're about to go coach. It's more about representing them in a proper light. Let's talk about the accomplishments they just had, especially talk about their basketball team, because they whoop on A&T every year. I don't know. We can't get around it, and it's pissing me off. I don't know what to do at this point, trying to play Norfolk State and those doggone Spartans. But trying to change that narrative, because there are people, and as a journalist myself, we're going to attack you with things that are facts, but also trying to get your opinion and how you feel and twist it. That's what journalists do some of the time. We're not supposed to. That's biasm and using opportunities and opinions like that. But we personally are not looking for the greatness. We're trying to get you to say something and trip you up. So I will say on that point, having this notoriety is great. Pulling back into the Black community, because there are also a lot of Black professional players that try not to pull back into HBCUs. They try to go into other programs that are more promising, like Alabama, Florida State, Georgia. And then it takes forever when we finally get a vice president that graduated from Howard, or we're getting these Senate speakers, or we're getting orators, or we're getting publishers that are finally getting that notoriety and now want to say, oh, I went to Spelman, oh, I went to FAMU, oh, I went to Howard, oh, I went to Clark Atlanta. We're not doing our part as well representing them. So, and from what we speak and how we go to the media, what do we expect from these people to say? So while it's great to do stuff, I think some of the fault falls on us. We don't even speak highly about what we do ourselves. So why should we think that the narrative changes if we finally show recognition when something big actually happens? So I don't blame him for what he said. Should he have known better and need some more public relation training? Of course. But if that's what he's heard, that's what he has to say. And it's up to us to change the narrative and change how we speak about HBCUs, especially coming to this new administration. Now than ever, the power of how we speak about these historically Black colleges and universities is more important than what we hear and what we try to put out into the media.
Agreed. And what I'll say is that the Breakfast Club interview, so just for context, so DeSean Jackson was there, and I think he was fine. It wasn't like, if I was giving the grade, it was like a B. But it's like he didn't have to like be an A plus. You don't have to be like just so polished. You didn't have to be that. It's DeSean Jackson. I know what to expect. It was more so Charlemagne in them. I wanted more defense from DeSean Jackson with the Kevin Hart situation, because Kevin Hart had went on the Breakfast Club back in September during the fight night. I think you might have heard about it. He was going crazy, and it's like Kevin Hart's my dog. Like, Kevin Hart is such a good dude. Like, he honestly really is. He's very philanthropic towards HBCUs, but I don't know if it was some other influences that was there, I would say, but he was just going crazy with the stuff he was saying. And DeSean Jackson said he just heard about it and he called him and get him to apologize. And they talked about maybe doing some stuff. And DeSean Jackson's like, because Kevin Hart was like, yeah, do y'all have a building I can put my name on? And DeSean was like, well, we're an HBCU, so we need that. And it's like, I mean, yeah, but like, no. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, but like, no. Because, Delaware State, they pretty good. You know, they all right. Because if DeSean Jackson, he touched down at Delaware State and he talked to Lisa Blunt Rochester, he's gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying? Like he like a senator, she's making history as in the first time history, there's been two black woman senators at the same time. And she gave him a call and they talked. And she probably said, if you need anything, let me know. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't, that's what I don't like. And I think that the DeSean Jackson, Michael Vick stuff, like it invites that level of these HBCUs are needy when I want us to level set the perception because there is a need for support and there is a need for, I think, more black folks to support HBCUs, but the support varies by institution because you went to North Carolina A&T. North Carolina A&T needs support, but not as much as some other institutions. Like I'll give an example, like North Carolina A&T has a bunch of, I think y'all had like almost, I think pushing almost 15,000, you know? Like you have Bennett, that's right. Oh, a little more than that. Okay, a little more than that. A little more than that. So Bennett, you had to stand with Bennett movement. That's when I came into the game in 2019, where Bennett, they were like fighting to keep their accreditation, and then they ultimately did lose it, and then they had to get accredited by another accrediting organization. That's not North Carolina A&T's problem. You know what I mean? Like there might be other problems, but that resource disparity, that's not the same problem. It's almost like a football team. Like the Lions and the Dallas Cowboys are not the same. You know what I'm saying? Like the Dallas Cowboys just fired Mike McCarthy. Like the Lions, they thinking they about to go to the Super Bowl. It's not the same. It's not like, oh, he's defending HBCUs. Oh, he's this HBCU defender. Like when I love me some video games. When I go to the video game, and I'm an NBA champion though, I just won NBA championship last night with the Nets. Okay, so like when I pick my team, I look at the rating, I look at the players they have, and in NBA 2K, I got my issues with NBA 2K Arielle, but get this. In NBA 2K in my league, you can click the right trigger and it says the governor, because they call the owners the governors now. The governor, and it has a different personality for each governor. Does the governor a penny pincher? They don't want to give you money. Or is the governor open to competing, right? Or is the governor more so win now or you're out? That's just like HBCU life. That's like real life. Because at North Carolina A&T, the specificity of what Sean Gibbs is going to do at North Carolina A&T and what they expect from him in the CAA is going to be different from what DeSean Jackson is expected to do at Delaware State. It's going to be different from what Michael Vick is expecting to do at Norfolk State. And you know the funny thing about it, and this is not a shot to A&T, I know you're going, that's because it's going to pique your mind, but all of them, they've had losing seasons the past few seasons. So the same thing that Sean Gibbs is going to be presiding over a team that has had great success, but is struggling right now in a new conference. So Sean Gibbs is going to have to rebuild that team. It's the same type of situation as Michael Vick and DeSean Jackson, but it's different because there's more expectations for maybe what Michael Vick could do than DeSean Jackson. It might be more expectation to bring A&T back to glory that Sean Gibbs has versus the others. It's different. And that's all I want people to understand. And last thing I will say is I do want, because I got to say this last thing. I really want for media members, not just for HBCU life, and I've said this before, I need for media members to remember, Arielle, what we were taught in school is show prep. We were taught research. You don't say nothing without research, because everybody isn't a journalist, and that's okay, because there are some people, I didn't necessarily want to be a journalist. I was pulled into it by a profession now with Clutch Points, but I wanted to be a prognosticator. I wanted to be like your Tom Joyner. I was inspired by Stephen A. Smith, but there is a level of fact and truth you have to sit in. And I know for me at Fort Valley, Miss Ellis, who's a radio Hall of Famer, I think I've talked about her before, she put in us show prep. She put in us preparing for these shows. Why are you going to go on a nationally syndicated show and you are in the Radio Hall of Fame as the Breakfast Club and say, well, I didn't know that Delaware State even had a football team? Are you for real? You're not for real. And also, Breakfast Club, where was Lauren LaRosa? And I was looking at the comments, Arielle, they're like, oh, well, Lauren don't need to be there. She wasn't picked to be the coach. It's just hilarious. That's fine. But if you, and if you went in Hampton, that's fine. But if you have DeSean Jackson in the building, bring a Delaware State alum. That's all I'm saying. If I have this nationally, we got the Sirius XM show, but if I had like a nationally syndicated show like the Breakfast Club, and I had like Tariq Cohen in the building, I'm gonna call you, Arielle, sorry, you want to be on this interview? Because you're gonna know stuff about A&T that I don't know. So you're gonna be able to talk about Tariq Cohen and A&T better than I would. Like it's simple. Like so that's the part that I don't like, because there are people that are gonna listen to that interview. There are people that are gonna listen to other interviews that are gonna be like, oh, these HBCUs, oh man, they can't manage money and XYZ. It's like, I'm not saying that for every HBCU that's not true, but there are differences between the HBCUs. That's all I'm saying, and that's my problem. That's my problem, honestly.
I mean, honestly, you have a point. You have a point. There's nothing outside of that. It just comes down to being prepared. Also, as we learned from the Shannon Sharp and Cat Williams interview, there's stuff you can't say that we will discuss, and there's stuff that you shouldn't bring up that I specifically tell you not to talk about. But also do your research and respect, especially our HBCUs. Respect us. Not all HBCUs don't have everything in sports. There are some HBCUs that don't have football. There are some HBCUs that have all sports. There are some HBCUs that don't have basketball. But do your research and respect us. And respect, like you said, that Delaware being a top 10 school in the HBCUs. Respect that they have funding. Respect that they can go and actually pay these coaches. Norfolk State can pay these coaches. Respect us. Because not only is it going to come from us, like I said, as HBCU alum, it has to come from us. We have to speak of them better. But also the people that we go for representing them on the Breakfast Club, if we're going on the morning show, if we're going on TV, we have to do better. We are, like you said, not trophy cases. We are not everybody's underdog story. HBCUs provide really, really great education, and we do well, and we are successful, as we've seen in the past 2 years. Come on now.
Exactly. And like you said, that people gonna be mad at you. They're gonna definitely be mad at me. Oh my gosh, he's an HBCU defender. I'll take it.
Your HBCU. Defend us, Randall.
Listen. I have a Norfolk State hoodie on right now. Isn't that crazy? Like I bought this like a couple years ago, by the way. So I had to go on there because here's what I was going to do, and I think you knew, Arielle, what I was going to try to do. I was going to get a Michael Vick jersey, the Atlanta Falcons jersey. I was going to scum. But the money situation a little bit different though, Arielle. It's different right now.
Listen,
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Listen, you know my situation.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
We're trying to climb out the gutter right now, but it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna have to start paying back the federal student loans because Linda McMahon from the WWE is gonna make me pay back my federal loans. That's a whole different story. From the WWE.
Linda, listen to me, man. I see y'all got this deal with Netflix. I see y'all doing real good. If I need to fight somebody for my student loans, let me know.
No.
Put that in one of the options to pay back my student loans, bro. Please.
Arielle, listen, you know I'm a wrestling fan. I can book you a good story, Arielle. I can book you a good story. Because we got a story right now. We can have you come in. You the one that beat up Jay Cargill. Like, it was like, we found it.
Let me do it, Randall. I'm serious. Look, we joking. This education situation, mad scary for real. But like, please, Linda, if you listening, for real, please.
I'll tell you. Trust me, she's not listening. Like she's not listening at all. But listen, before we go, I want us to talk about some of the other coaching hires in this cycle. So I want to just go through them really quickly. It's really 3 major hires. And I want us to talk about Sean Gibbs again. He's now officially the coach of North Carolina A&T. But let's start with Prairie View A&M. So Tremaine Jackson is the coach at Prairie View A&M. So he just was in the Division II National Championship with Philadelphia State. Ultimately, they did lose to Ferris State. And for Jackson State, I want to say that go and watch the Division II National Championship. Shout out to Tremaine Jackson. That was domination. That was a blowout. What you saw in the Celebration Bowl was not. I stand by what I said. Go back and look at that game. Valdosta State was not going to win that game. And that's no diss to Tremaine Jackson. I'm rooting for him. He's an amazing coach. But I just want to just say I brought that in 2025. I didn't leave that in last year. That was because all I was saying in that situation was that I felt as if like South Carolina State had moments of good that I saw, right? There was moments of good that I saw, especially from the defense. The offense wasn't really hitting like that. And then Jackson State sort of took over. And at a point, Jackson State looked amazing, but it wasn't, they dominated, in my opinion. But if you want to see domination, because we're talking about story narratives, like I didn't play football, but we're talking about narratives. This is what I do. Do this for a living. We do this for a living, right? So we're talking about narratives. The narrative that I got from that game is Jackson State was able to match South Carolina State's physicality, and they won. But Ferris State beat down Valdosta State. It was sort of sad to see. I was rooting for Tremaine Jackson. You know what I'm saying? So like that was sort of my thing when it came down to it. But just because Ferris State beat down Valdosta State, because they did beat down Valdosta State, that's not indicative of what I think will happen at Prairie View A&M. I think that for him, he's going to bring a level of success that I think that they haven't seen in the past few years. I mean, you had Bubba McDowell that was there. You had Eric Dooley that was there. I think that there is a level of success and a different view that Tremaine Jackson brings from Division II. And I think for a lot of people, what placates the Division II narrative for Tremaine Jackson is that he was at a white institution and was beating HBCUs and other white institutions. And he's an HBCU graduate. So you're looking at it and it's like, this guy here, he might have something. So a lot of people aren't like, he's a Division II coach. They're not saying that because it's different. Because it's like you went to a national championship with your guys and you beat Miles and you beat Miles and Union along the way. So,
pretty impressive. But we also can't forget that out of all these seasons, he went 30-9 for 3 seasons. He also won a bowl game back in 2023 and also D2 National Coach of the Year last year. So we can't forget that this man knows his stuff. And when he talks about this dog mentality, that's all I see. And quick point, I agree with you. I don't think South Carolina State was obliterated. I think Jackson State played down. And we both said that. And that was something that they could have lost. But this man coming in, I think he's not my favorite coach out of all these new head coaches. But I love the way this man coached, and I love the way that he orchestrates teams. So I do believe Prairie View A&M is going to be a little bit of a challenge this year in the SWAC.
I feel that. And one thing I'll say before we move on is that he says something really great in his press conference. He says that he's not trying to be a great HBCU program. He's trying to be a great FCS program. And I think that speaks a lot to the division. And I know this was a big topic last year, and we addressed it, but you had people that say, hey, the Celebration Bowl is great. Then you have folks that say, the FCS playoffs, we should be trying to play the best teams in FCS. When it's a different economic disparity when it comes to the FCS playoffs, the Celebration Bowl, it works within the current model of football because you have these HBCUs and the conferences getting a subset of that money. Then you get prime real estate on ABC to promote your institutions and your brand of football. So, during bowl season too, it's the start of bowl season now. So, and it was back in the day too. So it's different, right? But what Tremaine Jackson is saying, in my opinion, is that it don't matter. We're going to be playing postseason football, whether it's the SWAC championship or it's the FCS playoffs. And we know in the SWAC and also the MEAC as well with North Carolina Central, we've seen SWAC teams make it to the FCS playoffs. Because when Jackson State made that amazing run to the Celebration Bowl and the SWAC championship, you had Willie Simmons and FAMU that made it to the FCS playoffs. They lost to Southeastern Louisiana, but they were there. It was a great showcase for Marquise Bell, who plays for the Cowboys now. So I think that was a great thing for him to say. I'm excited for him. So Sam Shade, keeping up with our Division II coaches getting the big shot. Sam Shade at Alabama A&M. He was the coach at Miles College. He just won an SIC championship, and he and his team beat Carson Newman in the playoffs. So he won a playoff game. And he ultimately, his last game at Miles College, Tremaine Jackson beat him. So Tremaine Jackson got him up out of there. So
Yeah, unfortunately. But to me, out of all these three coaches that we're about to talk about, Sam Shade is the most impressive coach on that list. I'm
oh
super
hey,
Yes, I am.
wow.
I mean, if we're talking about it, we also have to remind her that I think that Tremaine Jackson is also going to be really great for his players because he's been in that NFL rotational programs with the Chargers and the Steelers and the Jaguars and the Texans, and they speak really highly of him. And also, with rumors, have tried to like, okay, maybe you can come on a higher level. So he's going to have that pull for them. But Sam Shade, when we talk about the chase discipline that he wants to do, accountability, character, habits, attitude, sacrifice, and excellence, I think they're going to be a problem. This man has extensive coaching experience. He knows how to put a defense together. He's a former champion at the University of Alabama. He led that championship. He knows what he's talking about. And the one thing I think that is interesting, but is also going to work out for him, he mostly only wants to recruit Alabama players. So that means anybody that's in his local circle, you have a chance to go play with him. And I know that people are like, maybe you need to go out of state, you need to recruit, you need to go to recruit and recruit. That can sometimes cost money, but it's also an iffy situation where you can just bring in those local boys who have that grit, who have that opportunity. And Alabama A&M isn't a bad program, but adding him into this community, adding him into what he's finna do with the boosters and the schools and the connection that he has in Alabama, they have a better chance at maybe making waves than any of the coaches that we have talked about. But his mentality and the way that he plays, this literally is my number one pick over Sean Gibbs. I mean, I love him and what he's about to do with AT is going to be great. But Sam Shade is nothing to play with, and I don't think we should sleep on what he's about to do for Alabama A&M.
That's real. I'm not. I'm shocked that you chose Sam Shade over Sean Gibbs. I feel that I don't.
Yeah.
you know the part that sucks about college football is that when you have so many teams in a conference, they don't play each other all the time. So I would have loved to have seen Gibbs versus Sam Shade.
Oh.
I'm not saying that Fort Valley would have beaten Miles College. I think that it was Miles's year, and I think that what you saw with Miles is physicality, and you also saw Sam Shade, which oftentimes we don't talk about a losing situation, right? Because like they played Benedict, and Chinnisberry's Benedict team ultimately came back and beat Miles College. But if you go back and look at that game, it was on HBCU Go. That was probably the game of the year, probably in HBCU football, honestly, because that game last year, not last year, now it's 2023, Sam Shade versus Chinnisberry, like it was amazing coaching, that coaching staff, offense, defense, and Miles College got the best of Benedict at that time. We thought that Benedict was going to finally, get dethroned by Miles College, and then we saw Albany State beat Miles College, so Miles College, we didn't get that rematch. Because, of course, the SIC, remember, they changed divisions. They changed it from where you have East and West, and now it's the East Division champion versus the West Division champion. They made it where it was divisionless, so the top two teams played. So, like, that made it different. We could have saw that again, and it didn't happen. And then Benedict went on and won, and, Chinnisberry left and stuff like that. So it sucks that we didn't get the chance to see Sean Gibbs sort of do that same thing, because I would have liked to have seen what Sean Gibbs and his offensive style and what his coaching staff did, what Fort Valley would have done against Miles College. I don't know if I would take Sam Shade at this point over Tremaine Jackson, because here's the thing. The thing about Tremaine Jackson is that he's a Texas Southern alum. He's at Prairie View. He's in Texas. And also he's doing a Chinnisberry in a way. And also Sam Shade's doing the same thing, but he's bringing some of those Valdosta guys over, So I think that you're going to have some guys that know how to win at the highest level of Division II. They're not coming to the FCS. I think that Tremaine Jackson, his blueprint, it clearly worked at Valdosta, and Valdosta gave him a stamp of approval. So he's going to Prairie View. Now, I think Prairie View, we can say Prairie View probably has more resources than Valdosta. I think that's safe to say that, even with, we had this thing about HBCUs in this community. Oh, white school has way more, Valdosta's Division II. And you have Prairie View that is a nice campus, has a lot of resources, right? I think that probably I would take Tremaine Jackson over Sam Shade. And I think that I personally believe that Tremaine Jackson would probably be more successful. And I also think that if Alabama A&M and Prairie View play, I think Tremaine Jackson beat him again.
I don't know. I think this may be a little different. It's just everybody's different when you first go in. But real quickly, lastly, of course, as a favorite, I mean, just because he's last doesn't mean he isn't great. Sean Gibbs, what are you thinking?
Oh, you want to ask me first? Okay, you want to ask
Yeah.
me first. I know we talked about it a couple weeks ago. I've had time to think about it. That first year is gonna be rough. That first year is gonna be rough. I hope A&T fans level set that. I like some of what I'm seeing in his recruiting, but I think it's going to be rough. I think that the schedule that A&T has in the CAA is going to be a little bit better, but I want them to level set, because I think that the nature, I'll say this real quick, the nature of the coaching carousel in the college football game makes it where I think some coaches, and you might vehemently disagree with me here, but some coaches need to have a little bit more time at other schools before they get the call up. I think Sean Gibbs might be that person. I'm not trying to say anything bad about him. I think he's an amazing coach, but there are some things at Fort Valley that I saw that I did not like. And I will be honest, I did not like the fact that he only beat Albany State one time. And he beat Albany State with Maurice Flowers' recruit. And then Kevin Durham was Maurice Flowers' recruit too, because he's going back to Johnson C. Smith. But he's going to Johnson C. Smith with Flowers again. But Emmanuel Wilson was not Gibbs' recruit. Now, we can say that Gibbs re-recruited him, and Sean Gibbs is an amazing running back type of guy because he developed Tyreek Cohen. But Emmanuel Wilson won us that game. And in 2023, there were some coaching decisions that I did not like that led to us losing to Albany State when we were better. 2024, there's no reason why Sean Gibbs and Sam Shade didn't play. I'm sorry. There's no reason why. We should have beaten Albany State. And this is not me talking from a Fort Valley, oh, he's a fan, he's an alumni. No. I'm being completely objective. There are years that Albany State was way better than us. They were way better. This year, we should have obliterated Albany State. With Kelvin Durham, with Brandon Marshall, and I know our defensive line wasn't that great, secondary wasn't that great, but we didn't. And there's some things, and also that Delta State game, we should have beaten Delta State. And Delta State is a D2 power. They went to the playoffs this year. We should have beaten Delta State. I give leniency to coaches, but he didn't win those games. I'll be honest. He didn't win those games. So do we reasonably think that he's going to beat North Carolina Central? Do we reasonably think that if William & Mary is on that schedule, he's going to beat William & Mary? I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
I think personally his season wasn't bad at Fort Valley State. Just because we're running out of time, I can't go through all his accolades, but I just think having that championship from 2014 all the way to 2019, you had 5 years of a really good season. We know what his recruitments are about. You recruited Tyreek Cohen and help him become the master running back in out of all the HBCUs that we've had, out of all the A&T running backs that we have, and they're running back university. He's one of those coaches that knows how to draft a backfield, and he has those recruitment talents in A&T. So we may not have seen it at Fort Valley State. He may not have been there long, but I think he deserves his position. And why not go back home where you know what the program is like, you know what the team is like, and you know what the players that you can bring. The only thing that I would say that would be his first time is trying to find a quarterback. Those are the main things that you need. The defense is always going to be great. That's something that you can always build, something that you can always grow. But A&T has always had an offense problem since jumping from the Big South to the CAA and going into our third year. That's one of those things that you have to construct. He is not off the chopping block as leaving after one season and parting ways or being fired from A&T. But I believe they are going to give him a little bit more leniency because he's been there before. But I don't see it going great, but I see it going better than the last two head coaches that we've had.
That's fair. That's fair. What I'll just say is that I agree. I agree with what you're saying, because I think development is his strong suit. I think that he and his coaching staff know how to develop players, and I think we saw that at Fort Valley. It's just if people say, because we talk about narratives, if people say he can't win the big game, it's hard to fight against that with the sample size that we have of him as a head coach, because he didn't play Miles, because he didn't play them. He did not play Miles. That's not his fault. Well, Technically, it's not his fault.
It's technically not his fault. I mean,
because it sort of is. It sort of is.
Well, if we're talking about games and orchestrating and what we're doing in divisions, I don't think that's technically his fault. But
he could have though.
But I don't think we should. I mean, nobody has really given him a chance until he left.
Yeah.
So we can't say something that nobody has ever given to do. It's not just like he's been to other programs that people have invited him to. All these other coaches have had head coaching experiences everywhere. This is the first time, actually, this is the second time that they have gave Sean Gibbs a chance to be a head coach. He's been second or he's been an offensive coordinator for all his life. So I can't fault him for not having this head coach experience, but what I've seen out of him, I don't think is as bad. Like I said, he's not my number one, as I said. It just has to be Sam Shade, but I don't count him out as to what he could do at A&T this season. Real
quick before we go. Okay, Tennessee State and A&T are starting the season. Who you think wins that game? Well, we're not giving the official pick, but you said Tennessee State?
Tennessee State is winning that game. I don't think they're winning it decisively, but they are winning that game. It's to play a team like that that's already embedded in their program. Eddie George doing really, really great. That's just getting the tweaks out. Honestly, I'm okay with losing to them. Nobody else though.
Yeah, I'm glad you are. It's gonna be decisive. I'm not gonna let you. It's gonna be decisive. But Sean, I got love for Sean Gibbs. Sean Gibbs, thank you for what you did at Fort Valley. He's gonna go down as one of our better coaches. So I appreciate that. But Arielle, great show. Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at __.marterdayari, or you can put me in the hot seat on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @askriri__, or you can visit my website, ariellekilgore.canva.com.
I love it. You're listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to HBCUPulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.